This looks awesome. I'm a sucker for Bant enchantments, and I'd love to see your take on one of my favorite Voltron token commanders, Kadira, Caller of the Small. Well, Jackie Solari, I have good news for you. I can think of a role that she can fill. Today's commander is one that I'm excited to give you guys because it's a archetype that I haven't actually touched before. And no, it's not tokens. That's a lie. I definitely didn't telegraph that pun very well, I don't think, because this is actually going to be a rolls deck, where our goal is going to be to stack as many rolls as we possibly can onto Kadira and other cards on our board. Now, for those of you who don't know what a roll is, they're basically token enchantments that were brought in with Wilds of Eldraine, and they give single abilities to our creatures based on the role that we have. They act identically to auras, but they're kind of weak. But with Kadira, Caller of the Small, we're going to be abusing them a lot, because Kadira says when she deals combat damage to a player, for every token we control, we get to make a 1/1 white rabbit creature token. Now, here's the thing. She doesn't say they're creature tokens, so we are going to be spawning enchantment tokens. Give a quick refresher on what role tokens are and what they do. They are basically enchantments that act as auras on your creatures. Cursed rolls give creatures base power and toughness 1/1. Monster rolls give creatures 1/1 and trample. Royal rolls give creatures ward 1 and +1/+1. Sorcerer rolls give creatures 1/1, and whenever this creature attacks, scry 1. Wicked rolls give creatures 1 run, and when this aura is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life. Young Hero gives a creature the ability that says whenever it attacks, if its toughness is 3 or less, put a 1/1 counter on it. And Virtuous rolls give creatures 1/1 for every enchantment that we control. It should also be noted that a creature can only have 1 roll on it at any given time, so it's very lucky for us that our commander creates rabbits that we're going to be putting more rolls on as the game goes on. Now, because we are going to be playing Kadira as an Enchantress-style go-wide deck, so we can focus on getting rolls on multiple rabbit tokens, we are going to have to be very, very particular with the kinds of enchantment interaction that we run. A lot of enchantment interaction tends to be on cast trigger. When you cast an enchantment, you get stuff, and since rolls are not cast, we are going to have a very narrow deck in terms of its scope, but let's go ahead and talk about the deck itself. That's enough preamble. Also, want to note that, as per usual, this deck is built within the constraints of the $15 challenge, so the commander can be $1 or less, the deck can be $15 with a few cents give or take, and the entire deck tends to be under $16 usually. So Kadira here clocks in at 13 cents for the deck, the rest of the deck clocks in at 14 cents 99, so we're just within that limit. Let's talk about the most important part of the deck we can, the rolls themselves. Starting with Besotted Knight, we can pay 1 to make a royal roll, and that gives a creature 1/1 and ward 1, and then we can use it to create a creature later on in the game if we need to increase our creature count. The Charmed Clothier will put a royal roll on a creature at any point that we need and gives us a 3/3 flyer. Curse of the Werefox will give us a monster roll, which gives us, of course, 1/1 and trample. Then Elevere of the Wild Court, whenever she enters the battlefield or attacks, we may put a virtuous roll token on any target creature we control. So we attack with her and we attack with our commander, put a virtuous roll on our commander. Our commander already has trample, so now she's going to spawn a bunch of tokens and get a bunch of power based on the amount of enchantments we have on the board. Anytime one of our enchanted creatures deals damage to a player, we'll also draw a card. And of course, again, our commander has trample built in, so she will be getting damage through. People are going to probably want to remove Elevere off of our board before they remove our commander. Then we have the Red Tooth Genealogist. That's the one. When it enters the battlefield, make a royal roll, giving a ward 1 and 1/1. Then we have Gwilaine. Anytime another non-token creature enters the battlefield, we can give it a royal roll, sorcerer's roll, or monster roll. Remember that a lot of our ways to create rolls also happen to be stapled onto creatures, so that will be good for Gwilaine. Then we have Ferocious Werefox, can put a monster rolls onto something and then also become a 4/3 creature with trample later. Giant Inheritance will give a creature 5/5, and we'll give it, whenever this creature attacks, create a monster roll on any attacking creature we have. So if we swing with our commander and a rabbit, we can now make one of those rabbits a a monster rabbit for reasons. Then we have the spell book vendor. At the beginning of combat on your turn, pay 1 to put a sorcerer roll on any creature that we control. Royal treatment will target a creature we control and give it hexproof until end of turn, which can prevent us from dealing with any kind of spotty removal. And then we also can put a roll on it as well, which will give it ward 1 for later. Then we have unassuming sage. When it enters the battlefield, pay 2. If you do that, put a sorcerer roll attached to this creature. When you do, we are almost always going to want to do that because we want a high amount of enchantments on the board. We care not how they get there. We simply care that we increase the enchantment amount. And then we have Sir Armont the Redeemer. When it enters the battlefield, make a monster roll token, giving a creature 1/1 and trample. And then every enchanted creature we have gets 1/1 as well. That includes our rabbits. After your rolls, you of course want to get into what every deck requires, a nice adequate ramp, removal, and draw package. We have a 12-card ramp package for this deck. Let's go ahead and take a look at what that package is and why we've made the card selections we did. So Beanstalk Giant can search your library for a basic land, put it on the battlefield untapped, which gives it the same rate of return as something like Rampant Growth, but for a few pennies less. Also, it can double as a creature later in the game, because remember, our commander wants us to be able to get lots of tokens, which means we need to be able to get lots of creatures on the board to hold our roll tokens. We also have the Dawn Treader Elk. It can hold a roll token for us as well, while also being able to sack itself to give you a basic land card. Farhaven Elf, again, it can hold a roll token while also getting you a basic land out. Fertile Ground is an enchantment, so it increases our enchantment count while also ramping us by 1. Overgrowth ramps us by 2 and enchants onto our lands. Wood Elves can hold a roll while also being a card that can get us a forest out of the deck. Any forest at all, so that means even our dual lands. Wild Growth attaches to a land while being an enchantment. Nessun Wanderer has Constellation, so anytime an enchantment enters our battlefield, we can look at the top 3 cards of our deck and put a land from among them into our hand. This will allow us to maintain consistency with our land drops. You never want to miss land drops, and because it's worded specifically as when an enchantment ETBs, you don't have to worry about cast triggers. It will trigger off of your rolls. Growth Spasm allows us to get a basic land from the deck onto the battlefield, and also allows us to create an Eldrazi Spawn who can ramp us normally, but in this deck we're using it because it's a token that not only does our commander see, but it can hold a roll. Then we have Utopia Sprawl, which can glomp onto a forest and give you 1 mana of any color. Search for Tomorrow has the same rate of return as the Beanstalk Giant, but it also gives us a turn 1 play if we need it to. And Font of Fertility is an enchantment in and of itself, which means, well, there's a funny interaction we can use with this and another card I will show you all in a second. Next, let's get into the removal interaction section of the deck. These are the things that every deck needs to make sure that other players do not just automatically win the game ahead of you. You want to be able to disrupt people. I don't know why people don't run more removal in their decks, but let's go ahead and talk about the removal we're running in this deck. We do have a light interaction package. 9 cards is lower than I would normally want, but Selesnya turns out to be better at doing tokens and advantage than anything else, so let's talk about what we've got here. Buried in the Garden's a nice new card from Markov Manor. Enchant land. When it enchants a land, go ahead and exile a non-land permanent you don't control until Buried in the Garden leaves the battlefield, and then whenever that land is tapped for mana, its controller adds 1 mana of any color to their mana pool. So this is an Oblivion Ring that we can also luckily use to kill cards, or exile them. Aim this at commanders primarily because people are more likely to try to just make their commander go to the command zone to recast it, which sets them back on mana, and it will protect your Buried in the Gardens. Make sure that your Buried in the Garden clones, which we have a way of doing those, I'll show you here in a second. Make sure that Buried in the Garden clones are the things you are aiming primarily at other types of cards, because the clones, if people kill them, we don't care. But if we keep the original Buried in the Garden, we want to be able to make tokens off of it. But then we've got Generous Gift, lets us kill any type of permanent, gives somebody a token in response. The Grasp of Fate lets us exile 1 non-land permanent from every single person. Enters the battlefield for each opponent, take 1 of their non-land permanents. You can clone the Grasp of Fate as well, so this can just be a 1 for 6 in many cases. Lignify allows us to turn somebody into a tree folk. Return to Nature can get rid of an artifact, an enchantment, and it can tell a reanimation player to stop playing Magic the Gathering for free. Then we have Reclamation Sage, which can blow up any enchantment or an artifact. Oblivion Ring can get rid of any type of non-land permanent unless the Oblivion Ring leaves the battlefield. There are ways to abuse this in Flicker decks. We are not doing that here. We are going to be cloning Oblivion Ring. Minimus Containment is another Oblivion Ring type effect, but it transforms a card into a treasure. I like Minimus Containment a lot because oftentimes people will choose to just blow up their creature or their card so that the Minimus Containment will leave the battlefield, meaning this is basically just a 3 mana for getting rid of anything on the board, even if it's got indestructible. The reason people are going to want to do that is we have, like I said, ways to clone and create token copies of our enchantments. So put Minimus Containment on something your opponent's likely to explode, unless you want to keep Minimus Containment out for a while where people can be like, oh, I can one day get my creature back. It's fine. No, just never let them do that. And then we have Sundering Growth, blow up an artifact or enchantment, then populate, which means we create a token copy of a creature we control. We do care about tokens of creatures, copies or otherwise, because of our commander. So this pulls double duty for us, which is incredibly helpful in the type of deck we're in. And then we have the most important part of any Enchantress deck, the actual Enchantresses. This is the draw package of the deck. And again, we had to be very specific on the types of Enchantresses that we chose to use, because we don't have a ton of enchantments or ETBs. We only have 21 enchantments in the deck, in an enchantment-centered deck. Most of our enchantments are going to be tokens that we are going to be plopping on the board a lot. So we want Enchantresses that care about tokens plopping on the board. Enter Tanglespan Lookout. Anytime an aura ETBs, draw a card. Stessian Champion. When an enchantment ETBs, put a 1/1 counter on Stessian Champion and then draw a card. Satyr Enchanter. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, draw a card. It is one of our few cast triggers we are able to use. Then we have Mesa Enchantress. When you cast an enchantment, draw a card. Eidolon Blossoms. When an enchantment enters the battlefield, draw a card. Elvish Archivist. When an enchantment or an artifact enter the battlefield, either use the 1/1 counters on it with the artifacts, or draw a card once per turn if an enchantment enters the battlefield. I can't stress this enough. Elvish Archivist is my favorite Enchantress in Magic the Gathering. It's not the most broken. It's arguably one of the weakest ones. It is my favorite. I adore cards that are well designed and have a lot of good balancing mechanics on them, and Archivist is just amazing for that. Enchantress's Presence says when you cast an enchantment, draw a card. We can also clone this, which is important for later. Harmonize lets us draw 3 cards, and then Sage's Reverie says when it enters the battlefield, draw a card for every aura attached to a creature, and then the creature will get 1/1 for every aura that is attached to that creature already. A lot of times this is only going to grab us like 2 or 3 cards, except when we clone the Sage's Reverie, which again, I'll show you how we're going to do that later. But that is the draw package. We've gone over draw, we've gone over interaction, we've gone over removal. Now we need to go ahead and talk about how we are going to be doing the cloning I've been talking about. Let's talk about Yenna. This is basically the deck's lieutenant. No matter the situation, Yenna is going to ruin people's days, and you can actually swap Yenna out as the commander for this deck as well, and the deck will function just as well. You can do either or. Take your pick on which one you want to be the forefront of the deck. The other functions as a perfectly good lieutenant either way. Yenna says, pay 2, choose an enchantment you control if it doesn't have the same name as another permanent you control. Create a token copy of it, except it is not legendary. And if the token is an aura, then you get to untap Yenna, then scry 2. Only do this at sorcery speed. So this is going to allow us to copy our enchantresses. This is going to allow us to copy our enchantments. And importantly, this lets us copy our rolls. Yes, she doesn't say non-token enchantment. She says an enchantment that doesn't currently have another enchantment with the same name on the board, which means our rolls can be copied with this. Speaking of copying our rolls, we also have 3 blind mice. The turn it comes out, we make a 1/1 white mouse. Then on turn 2, we create a token copy of a target token that we control, and that happens on turns 2 and 3. And then on turn 5, when it blows up, creatures you control get 1/1 and gain vigilance until end of turn. So here's what we're going to be doing with 3 blind mice. This is a wonderful card. So 3 blind mice comes into play. We have 1 copy of it. Yenna is going to copy that 3 blind mice that's on the board. And then that 3 blind mice, when it goes into turn 2, will create a second copy of 3 blind mice. And every turn, you will be able to use 1 copy of 3 blind mice to make new copies of 3 blind mice. And the other copies of 3 blind mice will be able to make copies of our rolls. And those copies of our rolls will go onto our either our commander or any of the rabbits our commander has created. And then, well, we're going to have an army of monstrous or wicked or what have you tokens. And if they're wicked tokens, we can just blow up our own tokens with a board wipe later and win the game off of burn damage. 3 blind mice this is a nutty card. This card is fantastic. Please run 3 blind mice in all of your Enchantress decks. The card is bonkers, especially in decks that already have ways of cloning like our deck does. And then we have Siona, Captain of Pyleus. When she ETBs, look at the top 7 cards of your library, put an aura from it into your hand. Whenever an aura you control becomes attached to a creature you control, put a 1/1 human creature token onto the battlefield. So for every roll we clone and put onto a rabbit, she is going to create another 1/1 white human soldier token. And then for every human soldier token we have, and every roll token we have, which we're doubling and tripling up on, our commander sees all that and goes, oh, did you want an army of rabbits today? We have an army of rabbits. We just turn them sideways. We don't even have to make our token army have any evasive maneuvers because we're creating so many of them. Most people don't have a way to block 1,000 rabid rabbits, but we have a way of creating that many. And then we have Sigil of the Empty Throne. Anytime we cast an enchantment, put a 4/4 white angel creature into the battlefield. This is one of our finishers. If we are late game and need a way to kill somebody, Sigil will take care of that. Then we have Romana II. Tap and create a tapped token that is a copy of any token that entered the battlefield this turn. So you have her and Yenna. Yenna creates a tapped token of copy of any of our things, and then Romana says, oh, you made a clone? I like that. I want to make a clone too. I want to make clones as well. Or if we make a roll token, Romana can then create a copy of the roll token that we have done. She creates a tap token copy of anything. She can make a copy of an angel token. She can make a copy of a roll token. She can make a copy of one of our big enchantresses. She doesn't care. She just says, oh, you did tokens? Well, we are a specifically token enchantment deck. She is perfect for our deck strategy. She is borderline nutso with our deck strategy. Then we have Ajani's Chosen for 4 mana. Whenever an enchantment ETBs, create a 2/2 white cat creature token. If the enchantment is an aura, you may attach it to that token. So Ajani's Chosen is just absolutely beautiful. Every one of our rolls, we can then put, instead of on a rabbit, we can put it on a 2/2 cat, which is bigger and a better house for most of the roll tokens to begin with. And Ajani's token, because it doesn't say on cast, it says every time we have a enchantment ETB, Ajani's Chosen is creating a ton of cats for us, because all of our roll production ends up operating for it. Then we have Arcanasan's Grace. If an enchantment ETBs, make a 2/2 white Pegasus token. Again, amazing because we are using rolls. Then we have Historian's Boon. When it or another non-token enchantment enters the battlefield, make a 1/1 white soldier creature token, which of course our commander sees, and turns that into more rabbits. If the final chapter of a saga we control triggers, create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying and vigilance. Remember, we have 3 blind mice, and we have a way to create nigh infinite copies of 3 blind mice. So every time one of our 3 blind mice finishes its ability, we just have Historian's Boon create us another white angel token. And then we have Inspiring Leader. All creature tokens we have get 2/2. So you're going to drop out Inspiring Leader and be like, my creature tokens have plus 2/2. Then you're going to copy it with Yenna. My creature tokens get plus 4/4. Then you're going to use Romana to copy the copy. And then you're going to go, oh, my creature tokens get plus 6/6. Every 1/1 rabbit we spawn with this deck, every 1/1 rabbit that Kadira makes is actually, in all reality, a lie. They are giant 7/7 monstrous creatures waiting to get frisky with our opponent's nose holes. Just beautiful, beautiful stuff. But remember, it's very likely a lot of our cards are going to be destroyed, so we need to have ways to recur those cards. So let's talk about our 5-card recursion package. Auramancer, ETB, get any enchantment from our graveyard back to our hand. Monk Idealist, same thing, ETB, get an enchantment from our graveyard to our hand. Return Triumphant, take any creature from our graveyard and put it onto the battlefield if it has mana value 3 or less, and then create a Young Hero roll token and attach it to it. This is going to get back one of our enchantresses. Like, flat out, this is what it's for. This gets back the Mesa Enchantress. This gets back the Elvish Archivist. This gets those out specifically, and then it immediately puts the Young Hero roll on them, which means that we have an automatic token for our commander to see. Then we have Sun Titan, ETB, get any permanent from our graveyard with mana value 3 or less onto the battlefield, and every time it swings. And Timeless Witness, when it ETBs, return a card from your graveyard to your hand, and it has Eternalize, and I want you to understand how busted Eternalize can be in a deck like this. You need to remember that Eternalize doesn't bring the creature back from the graveyard. Eternalize creates a token copy that is an embalmed creature onto the battlefield. And then Romana II says, oh, you made tokens? I want to make tokens. You made a token this turn? I want to make a token copy of that token. So even when they kill our Timeless Witness, this is probably one of the best decks for that Eternalize trigger to function in. But now, we're making a bunch of tokens. We're making a bunch of roll tokens. We're making a bunch of rabbit tokens. This is obviously a go wide deck. We want to punch people with a bunch of creatures, except we are an Enchantress deck, which means we are in a lucky situation. We get to do both. We get to strike from both angles. So let's go ahead and talk about the 5-card enchantment counts matters section of the deck. And these are the cards that are most dangerous. These are the things that if our opponents see them on the battlefield, they are going to shit bricks. All that glitters. Creature gets 1/1 for every artifact and or enchantment that we control. That counts our tokens. All of the rolls we made, we have a rabbit and we put all that glitters on it and give it a monstrous roll token, which we've got like a billion ways of creating. Now that's a trampling rabbit with God knows how much power. We can just aim that at somebody who's been paying life in their black deck. Just go, yeah, no, I don't care that you cast Bolas' Citadel last turn. I'm gonna swing a rabbit at you for like 12 billion damage. That's your fault for paying life as a resource. Then we have Ancestral Mask, one of the fastest ways to just annihilate somebody's health in Magic the Gathering. Enchanted creature gets 2/2 for every other enchantment on the battlefield. This thing will ruin somebody's day because it reads other people's enchantments too. So if anybody else is playing Enchantress or if somebody is playing, Spellslinger deck and they've got their copies cards on the board, Ancestral Mask sees all of that. Ethereal Armor gets a creature 1/1 for every enchantment you control and gives it first strike. Heavenly Blade Master, it's got flying and double strike. When it enters the battlefield, you can attach any number of auras and equipments you have to it, and then other creatures you control get 1/1 for every aura and equipment attached to the Heavenly Blade Master. So, I want you to understand, when you play this card, you take all of your non-rolls and attach them to the Heavenly Blade Master. Now, all of our 1/1 critters are like 10/10s. They're like 12/12s. The Heavenly Blade Master comes down and just becomes massive. It takes the token copies of our auras and puts it on it. It puts a roll on itself automatically. Even if it's just one roll, it's automatically giving everybody a lot of power. And it itself has double strike, so if it comes onto the board and it sees like Ethereal Armor and Ancestral Mask, it puts those on itself and a roll that we have, again, like 12 billion of, and we're just off to the races. We are just off to the races with this card. And then we have Nettle Cyst. Living Weapon, it makes a token when it comes out, which our commander wants to see, and equipped creature gets 1/1 for every artifact and enchantment that we control. So it's just another way of making a card go tall in a go-wide deck. And then, because every good deck needs to have a couple of board wipes to make sure that they have ways of keeping everybody else honest and clean, we have 2 board wipes in the deck. Winds of Wrath, blow up all enchanted creatures. They can't be regenerated. And Austere Command, we get to choose 2 modes. Blow up all artifacts, blow up all enchantments, or blow up little creatures or big creatures. I've chosen these board wipes because they are basically asymmetric in our deck. We can just choose all artifacts, and we will rarely get hurt by that. We can choose all creatures that are big and make sure that nothing that is on our board that is in our go-wide strategy gets hit. It'll only hurt us if we're already so well set up that we wouldn't have needed to use the board wipe in the first place. And if we're set up enough where all our creatures are huge, we just choose the mode to blow up the little creatures instead. Like, who cares? So, that is our Kadira Caller of the Small deck. Y'all wanted to see me make another Enchantress deck. I know that I saw that in my comment section a lot. People had suggestions for things like Miracle and other Enchantress commanders. I figured I'd go ahead and pull a bit of a switcheroo, give you guys an Enchantress deck that is actually a Go-Wides token deck, that is actually using a token commander, that is actually using enchantment tokens, so that it can do its thing. I figured this would be a fun and unique way to go about the rolls deck. She spits out enough tokens that you can put rolls on everything. You've got so many ways to make rolls. All of your rabbits should have a ton of rolls attached to them. You probably want infinite tokens to play this deck. You want to make sure you're not putting dice on dimes. You want to make sure that you actually have a very clear board state. This is a type of deck that can have a very confusing board state very, very quickly. There are those enchantment rolls that I showed you, the actual roll tokens you get from your LGS. You also can use infinite tokens for that. You also could 3D print, if you've got access to one, 3D print a bunch of tokened and counters items that can go on your stuff so that you have a very visible board. Because remember, most of the time you can just be like, yeah, I've got a billion white rabbits. But in this deck, the rabbits are all going to have different roles attached to them, which is going to be very important for us to make sure that you keep track of. So please have visible board states and have fun. This is going to be one of the more fun decks to play if you have not already. If you like drawing lots of cards, if you like having multiple moves you can make in a single turn, if you like obnoxiously big numbers, this deck does all of that. So I hope you enjoyed Kadira, Caller of the Small, and I hope that this ends up scratching that itch for a lot of y'all. Let me know how you feel in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you haven't already. And I want to thank every single one of you for getting us to 2,500 subscribers. I didn't realize that this channel would ever even get that big. I made the one big video complaining about how Magic had gotten, and then the channel had this weird boost after that, and then I just didn't do anything for a year, and now that I'm actually making content, y'all are here, and I am thankful for every one of you that are here. So thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. I can't wait to put out more episodes, and I'm going to keep on taking suggestions for more commanders to build around, and I'm going to try to find more fun and unique ways to do them, because I think that we have an idea when we drop a commander on the board, usually, of what the game's going to look like. I like trying to circumvent that sometimes. Make sure that Nira comes out as an Eldrazi commander. Make Kadira come out as a commander who's putting out enchantment tokens specifically. Make sure that your, Mishra deck is actually a vehicles deck, and it's spitting out all kinds of cloned vehicles on the board. Like, just all kinds of stuff. Also, the next deck that I have to talk about is a CDH deck, because somebody told me I couldn't build a CDH combo deck for $15, and I did. So, join me in that one tomorrow, if it's tomorrow that I release it. Either way, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I know this outro has been long. Thank you all for being here, and I will see you in the next video. Insert end of video tagline here. Hey, I just quickly want to give a thank you to all of my wonderful patrons who keep this show running. YouTube and Twitch are a pretty bumpy ride at the best of times, and the stability that Patreon provides me is worth more than I can say here. I'd also like to thank each and every one of my $20 and up patrons here, and they would be Red Joker, Blitzkrieg, Cameron, Dren, Jemshin, Smiling DM, Poundini, Mabbity Babbity, Naomi, Isaac, Agamotto, Jordan, Ravi, Giuni, Kiratorian, Prisma, all of you, I'm not saying that part, and Starlight. And finally, thank you to everyone else that helps keep this channel alive. While you're here, why not check out another video? And thank you for watching.